Hello everyone, welcome back to the Campbell Center's Art Academy YouTube channel. My name is Rochelle Cabra, and in today's lesson we are going to be learning about creating your own cartoon character. For many years, cartoon characters has always been on national television or in children's television for so many years, for many different ages, such as for kids, children, even for adults. We're gonna go ahead and learn how to do a cartoon character today for today's lesson. And we're gonna go ahead and see how we're gonna learn about the human anatomy, the animal anatomy, or how to create your own by making a male, female, and animal. So let's go ahead and get started. So in order to create your first cartoon character, we're going to understand the human anatomy or any anatomy of any cartoon character. Normally, cartoon characters creates from an idea. An idea includes what is the cartoon character going to be at, what size, how big the character is going to be, how skinny it's going to be, how thin, short, or tall. So normally anatomy is technically meaning what is in a cartoon character, or how it looks, or how it sees, or how it talks. So basically in the human anatomy of a cartoon character requires normally 2 eyes, 1 nose, a mouth, sometimes eyebrows, 2 ears, hair, and even in the body normally it has 2 arms, 2 hands, of course, 2 legs, 2 feet, and usually sometimes characters always focus on something with more details, such as, of course, 5 fingers, 5 toes, fingernails, eyelashes, and so on and so forth. Normally those basics for the cartoon characters is what's going to help you guys create your own and what is required to create your own cartoon character. Now the supplies that you're going to need for this exercise is that you're going to need some basic paper. I would say go ahead and get more than 5 sheets of paper because we're going to create a lot of cartoon characters. And also we're going to use a simple pencil, a eraser, and a basic pen. It could be black, blue, or even whatever color pen you like. And also try to get yourself a sharpener, especially if your pencil breaks. But we're going to go ahead and get started.
So, here's the thing that we're going to do. I'm going to draw pretty much a circle. And I'm going to use a medium grip instead. A medium is pretty much like holding your pencil in the middle. I'm also going to use the edge, which is kind of like a loose grip, and a very thick to the point is kind of hard. Normally we always use it kind of like this much, but to draw you just want to go about a medium. I'm going to go right here. So I'm going to create like an oval shaped circle, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a line in the middle. I'm going to go a bit of ½ an inch, and I'm going to connect here to create this chin. Then I'm going to create a spine, and I'm going to try to see if I can create a neck. I'm going to see how I'm going to work in the arms, so I'm going to create 2 joints here. This character is kind of going to be in the medium short, but because this is a small paper, we're going to go ahead and work on just the basic anatomy. So, I have 2 circles here, and I'm going to create 2 arms, upper arms. And I'm also going to, don't worry about mistakes, this is only practice. I'm going to create a small little joints. Those are the upper arms. And then I'm also going to create the smaller joints. And then pretty much we have the upper arms and lower arms. if you feel like there's a mistake, you can go upper, because that way this will be the joints. And that's pretty much it. Next one I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little upper C, like an N, but do not write the letter N. But then after that, we're just going to create a little rib cage. And the reason why we're creating a rib cage is that way we can understand the human anatomy. Next, what I'm going to do is create the belly. It's a little circle oval in the middle. And then after that, I'm going to work on creating the middle, which is like the pelvis. So the pelvis is kind of like a V shape, because we know that the pelvis has these two circles, something like that. And we're creating like a triangle, upside down triangle, so that way we can find the joints. And then, by connecting to the sides, we're going to go right in the middle, following over so it's kind of like creating almost a V, but a little bit of, look. So, and now I'm going to create two joints, these two circles right down here. Now we're going to move on to the lower bone, which is the upper part of your thigh. Your inner thigh is your upper bone. I'm going to get two joints because it's a patella. And then we're going to go lower. And now we're going to create the feet. Remember, we have a joint here and a joint here. This is where normally the joint is. It's where the feet starts. Now, basically we have the inner skeleton that most artists use. What I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and start putting a bit of flesh in there, which is kind of like, you know, the muscles. But these are the basic muscles. So obviously we know that we have the rib cage, the belly, and the pelvis. I'm going to go ahead and put a bit of arm, like the upper bicep, triceps, you know, the muscles of the upper arms. And then I'm also going to use the other forearm. So we now have a bit of flesh. It's kind of like muscular. Then I want to go ahead and work on here. So instead of going a straight line, I want to add some flesh of muscle inside. So instead of kind of going like this, I'm going to give it a bit of flesh by making the legs thicker, the thighs thicker, inner thighs. Then, same thing, we're going to create another one onto the sides. And then you can see that we see more of like a realism of the thighs. Then, we're going to work on the calves. Of course, more thicker in the middle here. And also right here. So it actually looks better, the anatomy. Now, we're also going to work on pretty much going back up here. I want to add these two lines. And the reason why we're going to work on those two lines is because that way we understand it's called the clavicle. It's like the upper part of the torso, just so we can work on that. Next, we're going to work on creating the hands and feet. Hands and feet are one of the most hardest to draw, but we're just going to learn about the basic hand. I have a trick for you. In order to study the hand, we're going to look at the shape of the hand. We know that the shape has around a V shape right here. So if I'm visually looking at it, I would know that there's lines coming on our hand. So we know that the hands, if you're flipping your hands like this in a drawing, we know that visually we're going to have the thumb. So my first step is let's do the shape of the palm. Shape of the palm would be kind of like an upside down triangle. Like little bells. Then, if we are kind of looking at ourselves, we know that if we are having the T-pose, it's either like this or like this. I'm going to try to do like this. So we know that there is 5 fingers, and so we know that the thumb is a bit shorter. The index finger, this pointer finger, is a bit of longer. This is the longest middle finger. The ring finger is almost identical to the ring finger, and the pinky, the smallest finger. You're going to do the same thing to the opposite side. As remember, since we're doing on the opposite side, you could also flip this hand and study it for a while. And we know that we have, of course, the shortest finger, the thumb, the pointed finger, the middle finger, the ring finger, and the pinky. Now, we're going to move on to the feet. The feet is kind of like one of the hardest, but there's a trick about it. So when we look at our feet and when we walk and we look down at our feet, we know that we have 5 toes. 5 fingers, 5 toes. And we know that for feet, it's flat. So what we're going to do is we're going to create, again, another flatter triangle. And we're going to work on the toes. So this is okay. Normally, if it's longer, that's fine. I'm going to create it a bit longer. And this is just, maybe this is going to help you, especially to place your toes. So we know our biggest toe go in the inside, not the outside, the inside of our feet. So we know it's a big toe right here. 2 big toes. Tiny middle one. The medium. The little mini ring finger. And our miniature. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's go back to the face. Again, we know that our clavicle is right here. Our skull, my apologies, we're up above the clavicle. And we know that our chin is right here. And this is our middle. So we know we're going to have our eyes here and our chin here. So this is basically the male figure of the human anatomy of drawing. It's almost certain and kind of close to the female, but I'm going to see if I can do the female a little bit more in order to help you guys draw. Okay, now we're going to work on the female version. Female is technically almost the same skeletal, with the same muscles. However, since male has a very big upper torso, we're going to work on kind of like the female because it has an hourglass shape and the bottom pelvis is a bit bigger. And sometimes the chest is also bigger. So we're going to work on kind of next to the male. And I'm going to measure, also I'm measuring with my pencil, where to place my next skeleton. So I know that in our class, you know that we want to take the smallest. I'm going to make an invisible line right here. Just a little line. And the tallest. Straightest pencil you could do. The top. And we're going to go a bit slower at it. Okay, so I created this invisible line. I'm going to move my page up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. So these invisible lines are just to help you measure how tall the skeleton is going to be. And it doesn't have to be super perfect. It's just one line to help you guys measure. So we're going to do the same thing. And you can also copy it as well. I'm going to create another line here. And this will help you create the length of the cranium. About right here, I would start, and I'm of course, measuring with my pencil. Start right around here. Creating a circle. There we go. And then of course I'm going to create another line. As you remember, we're going to copy like here. Of course, using a medium grip. Medium grip is like this. Of course, doesn't have to be perfect. Medium grip. Medium grip. Next, I'm going to go ahead and work on the neck. 2 little sticks, little circle. And I remember that I have to create the shoulders. Basically the flat side of the rib cage. 2 joints, which is the shoulders. And then, of course, I'm going to remember, this is called the clavicle. Clavicle is on the upper part of the neck. Remember, if you want to know where it is, definitely feel next to your neck. Always set your neck, and that's where the clavicle is. Now, of course, I'm going to create 2 little sticks. I'm going to try to do it a little bit lower since to save space in the page. And I'm also remember 1 more joint here and 1 more joint here. Now, I'm also going to create a smaller joint, smaller stick. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is go ahead and create the smaller joints. Let's go ahead and move on and make sure that we have the spine. The spine is not always straight, but it's right there. This is just a demonstration. Now, let's see if we can create the rib cage a little bit on the smaller side, kind of around here. And remember, we're doing it smaller. We're using a medium grip so we can know where is the rib cage. It's almost exactly the same, but we are going to create the hips. So the hips, I think what we're going to do is kind of like doing the abs. Abs is the belly. So we know that the belly is kind of somewhere there. And then what we're going to do is also create the hips. And now we know we have the hips. And so we're going to create of course, the hips. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and keep working on creating that pelvis. So again, same thing, a triangle. And I'm also going to create the hips, like an hourglass hip. And then we know that we want to create the thighs. So the thighs, of course, we know that we have our pelvis, our joints, we have our legs. So we're going to go ahead and create those thighs where I want to go ahead and put in the thighs because, of course, women have thick thighs and a bigger pelvis. So I'm going to go ahead and continue creating the knees. And of course, the middle, we know that we have those calves. I'm going to go ahead and create those calves while I'm at it. And we're going to go ahead and put the bottom joint of the feet. So for women, we know that, of course, they have a bit of a thinner arm. Not always, not 100%. I have thicker arms, of course, upper arms, and every body is always different. Then what we're going to work on is, again, let's repeat the same steps about 5 fingers and 2 hands. So, of course, as we remember, little bells. We're going to draw little bells. Another 2 bells. On the bottom feet. Again, we're going to repeat the steps. So we're going to work on the hands. Again, look at your reference. Thumbs, middle finger. This is a middle finger, my bad. So thumb, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky. So now that we know that if we're going to do the T-pose or hones, we're going to draw kind of like this. So we're going to do the thumb, the index finger, the ring finger, the middle finger, my apologies, the ring finger, almost the same as the index, almost, just a little bit there, small difference, and the pinky. Now, I'm going to work on the toes, as you remember. Let's take a look at this. If you forgot, well, why don't we take a look at this? Or, another cool thing is take a look at your toes. And remember, we have the same thing as 5 fingers. A toe, another toe, see, big toes, the middle fingers, the third finger, the third toe, the fourth, and the fifth. So, kind of looking a little cute. So, now that we have a bit of the differences of the human body with the male and female, again, almost the same. Of course, it's almost completely the same, but this is kind of more of the flat side. But this is more of an easier way where you guys can understand how to make a character move. And this is also the beginning. So in the next step, we're going to see how we're going to do like a dog and a cat version of the anatomy of animals. You could, if you want to, and if, let's say, the pencil is way too light for you, what I would do is I would go ahead and do it in pen. And I like to scrub it here. To do it in pen, I like to start in the middle so that way I know that the female is an hourglass shape. I know that there is a thigh going down here. Same thing, medium grip. 2 circles here, of course. 2 knees. Of course, the thigh, the calves. Thighs are up here. Calves. Of course, the belly. Okay. And of course, we're going to remember about the joints here, which is obviously the pelvis. The rib cage is obviously right up here. That's almost close to the female body. You could also do a cross down here to remember the spine and the abs. And another thing we're going to also work on is doing the same thing in the middle. Of course, the male figure, same thing. Make sure to give that curve, the 2 joints where the pelvis is, the thighs, and don't forget the pelvis, the belly / abs. We're also going to put middle, and don't forget the spine. We're always going to make sure we have the spine. And we're going to go ahead and do, of course, the knees and the calves. So I'm going to talk about the abs a little bit more. So each and every woman and men actually have abs. Abs are normally 6 packs, 7 to 8 packs, but I'm going to do 6 pack. So obviously we know that we have the 2 circular muscles here. That's 4 and 6. Of course, and then we'll have to remember about the middle muscle. Same thing with the woman. I'm going to do probably a 4 pack. Woman can have 6 pack. That's okay. And of course, I'm going to remember about the middle. And of course, rib cage. Now, of course, if you want, you could also remember to put the joints when you're drawing. That way you guys remember that these joints will be in your cartoon. So in case you want it to move or do a pose. Okay. And then of course the muscle, the forearm, the muscle. Okay. And of course don't forget the clavicle, the shoulders, the necks. And of course I'm doing it back and forth because that way I remember my joints and my muscles. And of course, I'm not worrying about how to make it so perfect. I'm more worried about making sure I have enough joints in my skeleton. Same thing. Make sure that we have our skeleton, our clavicle, our chin. Of course, don't forget these middle bones. You cannot forget about the middle bones. You just can't. Because remember, how can a person move if there's no bones here? Remember the joints, the heels, and of course, remember our hands, like little bells, triangles, upside down triangles, or triangle. They're not really upside down, but they're upside down if you're looking down at yourself. Our thumbs, index fingers, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky. Again, thumb, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky. Let's look at the feet. Again, upside down, triangles on the bottom feet. Remember, 2 big toes, the second toe, the third toe, the fourth toe, and the fifth toe. The big toe, the second toe, the third toe, the fourth toe, and the smallest toe. There you go. So basically, this is pretty much what I've learned for majority of artists. And of course, don't forget to connect the rib cage. And there is another trick where it's the back, where we forgot all about that, but it's the back's bone, which is kind of like a bit of triangles. And why we have triangles? Because remember, the backbone is the spatula. And the spatula is a bone that when you pat on the back is where the majority of the time we see the backbone. And of course we got the sternum, which is in the middle. It's near your heart. And of course, if you want, don't really have to do this, but of course create about a few lines, because that way we remember this is the rib cage, and so on. Now, we're going to move on and go ahead and start doing the anatomy of the animals. So, we know that dogs are almost in the same as humans, such as 2 eyes, their nose, their mouth, their tongue, and their muzzle. But humans don't have muzzles. It's just only dogs and cats. And we know we have their long torso, their rib cage, their tail. We don't have a tail. We have a lower backbone, but we don't have a tail. We have their little paws. Same thing with cats. Cats have a longer tail, has a longer bone, and they have the same thing as almost a dog. So, basically, I'm going to go ahead and work on creating like a little pear. A little oval. Doesn't have to be perfect. Next, what I would do is I would go ahead and create kind of like a stick like this. And I want to go ahead and create a mini head. Kind of like about this size. That's okay. Now, I think I want to go ahead and create a triangle to create the muzzle. It's kind of looking like a bird a little bit. Don't forget the nose. Kind of like a nose is the important part. Now, I want to kind of work on the neck a little bit, because sometimes the dogs have a shorter neck, a long neck, but I'm going to create like following from the upper part of the skull down to the back of the dog's skull. And now, since we have this torso, we have to remember that dogs kind of have this upper, chest. It's a little bit lower. Of course, we're going to remember the 4 bones. Remember, dogs have 2 bones around here. And of course, their big patellas here. Or not patellas. My God. It's more of the pelvis, somewhere around here. Dogs do sometimes parallel stand, but if let's say I want to pick up, or a dog has a sharp pose, I'm gonna do one where, of course, they have their little paw here, the little muscle here. We're gonna have that tiny little joint, and of course, we're gonna have that cute little paw going down here. Now, let's say if I want to go ahead and make a sharp pose. A sharp pose is kind of like how they're like, their paws kind of like this. I'm going to go ahead and create another joint right here. And make sure that you create a cute little paw pose. Of course, don't forget, make a curve and create another curve here. As you can see, we have the joint here and the joint here. So here they have their two little front paws. Now, their spine sometimes is kind of straight, always straight. Their upper spine should be here. And I think the rib cage should be right down here. Of course, their belly is probably going to be down here. And I'd rather go ahead and create a tail. Some tails are docked, meaning they don't have tails. Some pets, some don't. But the tail, if it is, it would be sometimes up. And now we're going to work on the feet. Make a curve. Make sure you create a curve. And make sure you have the ends. It's like the body. And we're going to go ahead and try to create a stick here. And another stick here. Because that's kind of like the back legs. Remember, create a bit of flesh. Add those muscles. Dogs sometimes have muscles. And of course the cute little joints here. And make sure we have the paws. Dog ears. So if a dog has flat ears, normally, if you want to remember, create the two joints here. And if a dog has flat ears, make sure to create at least a little flappy ear. But there's one example that I want to do is that there is a lot of dogs that have pointy ears and smaller ears. I'm going to just draw down here the head. And this is like a dog that's facing me. Make sure to go ahead and create the T pose. Look at it. And let's say the dog has pointy ears. Draw them kind of like a cat. But make sure they're kind of like not too pointed, but a bit of roundness on the top. And make some lines in there if you want some help. Make sure to put that cranium in there. Make sure that the neck is a bit longer. And don't forget the muzzle. Get that cute little button nose in there. And, of course, with the cute little muzzle, the cute little mouth. And if you want to add that tongue, go ahead and put it in there. And don't forget the eyes. Sometimes the eyes are smaller, sometimes big. And we know that in the middle, dogs have their neck. So, this is pretty much how to draw a dog. And now, of course, don't forget, if a dog has a fluffy tail, add some hair. But if it doesn't, just leave it the way it is. Drawing the cat is the same exact thing, except cats are thinner or sometimes bigger. Same almost anatomy. Again, I'm going to create the belly. This time I'm going to probably create a smaller belly. Of course, the neck. and a bigger cranium or bigger skull. And their muzzles are a little bit smaller, not too big, kind of like this size. Make it like it's almost a hat. Remember, two joints, two joints. Remember the rib cage, the belly. Rib cage is like a C. The belly, and make sure to, of course, following from the head down to the spine, which is right here, is the back and a little C to create the neck. Create the rib cage and the belly down here. And do not forget to create the booty, which is also the pelvis. Now, of course, cats, I think they have longer legs, longer skeletons. So I'm going to put two little triangles here, one down here, and one down here. And as you notice, I'm separating the legs. Yes, sometimes cats do stand parallel to each other. Parallel means they're like very close like this, but majority of the time, no. Majority of the time, if we visually look at cats, they do not stand like that. Same thing with dogs. So, cats, of course, let's give it a bit of muscle by wrapping it around the cat. And we're also, remember, two joints. Same thing. We're going to create the flesh, the back legs. Give me some muscle. Two joints. And remember, paws. Her paws are a bit smaller, but since this is a cartoon, there is not to worry. And of course, cats, do not forget about the tail. Tails are sometimes curved. Sometimes they have a longer tail. Cats have a bit of, muscle down here. And I'm going around the skeleton, which is down here. I'm going to do a pen, just to remember. This is the tail. And do not forget, we're going to go back to the skull. And we're going to go ahead and remember, cats have noses. They're really tiny, like a triangle. And remember, cats have a bit of pointed ears. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're not. And of course, don't forget the whiskers. Just so, remember, cats have whiskers. And obviously the eyes would sometimes either be here, here. Dog, same thing, here and here. Horse, don't forget the muzzle, smile, and of course the tongue. Cute. So, we're going to also see how we can probably draw it sitting down. So, of course, if it was a cat would be about, of course, here's the cranium, here's the spine. Remember, it's sitting down. Now, normally we know that cats, and we know that from the humans, we know that a shoulder is kind of like straight and up, but we know that cats and dogs don't necessarily have their, shoulders kind of like that. But I'm going to visually know that probably the cat has their shoulders here. They're somewhere around here. Of course, then we have that rib cage that they have in the inside. Their belly is probably sitting down here. We know that probably when cats sit, their paws are almost like close together. And I'm going to go ahead and create the big paws. And remember, cats have a curve where they're still sitting on their pelvis or their booty. We're going to create a curve this time, like a bell. Because remember, cats sit in a different way. They sit almost identical. If it was feet, they would be hiding almost behind their paws. But I think that would be okay. Remember to put in those arms. And I'm going to go ahead and put that, these little things to put inside. Basically, one circle here, two V's here, two joints here, and two circles here. Don't forget the shoulders here. I guess it's the shoulders here and the spine. Now, as we remember, cats have, of course, their muzzle, of course, their ears here, and of course, don't forget their muzzle, triangle, and their whiskers. And we're missing a tail. So the tail of a cat is so always random. Sometimes, which I will show you in a way, don't forget the eyes, is always different. The tail is sometimes either curved on the bottom. I'm going to draw super lightly this time. I'm going to do it like in dots. Or it is, curved kind of like this. This is only an example. So, or it's rested behind the person or behind their butts, but it's either resting down behind them, kind of like curving, or curving upwards, depending how they feel, depending how they stand. So this is almost exactly the same as a dog, how they sit, because of course, same thing in this stance can be applied almost close to this. But of course, there's dogs that lay down or they lay flat when they're sleeping. Something like that will help create the dog stand. So I would kind of do the same thing as the dog. So let me show you ahead and show you one example. Same thing. Create a cranium, the body, and make sure to, of course, have, their belly down here, their rib cage here, their neck down here, over here, up here. Of course, don't forget, they're sitting almost identical. The little paws, their paws down here. And don't forget, they have a booty. They're sitting on their bottom pelvis. And say the dog is a Shih Tzu. Of course, here's either their either their dog's ears are pointy or flat. Remember, they have their little nose, their mouth. Almost looks like a cat, but of course, the tail is always going to be either up, down, or flat. And what I'm doing in this trick is that it's like I'm doing little arrows because you need to remember the motion of a cat. Up and down, up and down, up and down for a dog. Not a cat, for a dog. Cats are always in a different way, in a different location. So this is the anatomy of an animal, which is like a dog and a cat. Birds or any other animal is there's a lot of the human anatomy to study. But these are the basics if you want to do a cat or a dog. Sometimes artists do in a morph of dog as a male or female as a cat, kind of like close to a little bit of like Lion King style. There is some animals or that in the world of like Disney cartoons they do where it's in the both where they're actually standing, but it's a bit more on the advanced side. But if you want to give it a try and combine it, why not?
So this is the end of the lesson. Thank you guys for watching and tuning in. Subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys very soon. And thank you for watching.